This painting vanished into a storage rack for 30 years, then revealed why a woman's family desperately needed it hidden. The Moon Festival still life looks, at first glance, like a painting about plenty. What it is actually a painting about only becomes clear once you know where it sat for nearly 30 years after her death, and what it took to move it from a storage rack at an art academy onto a permanent wall at City Hall. The painting now hangs inside the National Gallery Singapore's permanent collection. But for years after Chen died in 1993, works like this one sat in the custody of the Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts, off public rotation, while the country built the museum infrastructure capable of holding them. By the end, you'll know which object on that table is the reason the gallery hung it, where it hangs now, and the single word the curators use for paintings that arrive this way. Chen was a founding figure of what we call the Nanyang School, a small circle of artists in 1950 Singapore who took European post-impressionist technique and turned it on tropical subjects. Mangosteens, rambutans, lacquered offering trays. But what most viewers miss is this. The Moon Festival table she painted is empty of people. No family, no children, just the offerings, frozen mid-ceremony. Walk into the Singapore Gallery wing today, and the first impression of Chen's still lifes is warmth. Saturated reds, heavy fruit, the brushwork loose enough to feel like memory, tight enough to feel like devotion. Then you read the wall text. Chen painted this in Singapore after a life that had already broken twice, once in Shanghai, once in Penang. Her first husband, Eugene Chen, a foreign minister of the Republic of China, died under Japanese house arrest in 1944. She arrived in Singapore in 1954, already a widow, already in exile, already painting tables that no one was sitting at. That's when the absence in the frame stops looking like arrangement and starts reading as a list of names. According to the National Gallery Singapore's published catalog, Chen bequeathed the bulk of her estate, paintings, sketches, correspondence, to the Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts upon her death in March 1993. The works did not enter sustained public display for years. They sat in institutional custody while Singapore's art infrastructure caught up to what it had inherited. This is where most channels stop, but here is the part that changes how you read every other still life in the room and what the gallery had to undo to make it visible. The Moon Festival painting was never one canvas. Chen painted this same empty table again and again across decades, different rooms, same vacant chairs. And the versions did not all stay together. Some went into NAFA's archive, some went into family hands. At least one disappeared into a private collection for roughly half a century. The 2020 retrospective at the National Gallery, titled Georgette Chen, At Home in the Wall, was the first time those scattered versions were pulled back out of private holdings, academy storage, and family loans and assembled under one roof. And once they were in the same building, curators noticed something on the table that does not behave like the rest of the objects: the mooncake. Look at how she paints it, not as ornament, not as fruit, but cut, halved. The salted yolk exposed like a small sun on a plate. The Moon Festival is about reunion. A cut mooncake is a mooncake already shared, except there's no one in the frame to share it with. The assumption, for years, was that the empty table was a stylistic choice, a Nanyang convention. The 2020 catalog shows otherwise. Chen's own letters, held in the NAFA archive and cited by the curators, describe painting offerings for family separated by war, by borders, by death, people she addressed by name on paper, and by place setting on canvas. The empty table wasn't a composition, it was an address. But here is what determines where the painting hangs today. When it entered the National Gallery's permanent rotation, curators did not place it among other still lifes. They placed it deliberately near works depicting Singapore's living markets in street life. The contrast is the point. One room shows the country being built. The next room shows the relatives the builders left in Shanghai, in Penang, in graves they could not visit. That is why the Moon Festival still life lives where it lives now. In the curator's internal language, paintings that arrive through an artist's will, rather than a purchase, have a specific category: bequest. not a donation, not an acquisition. A bequest is what an artist leaves behind when there is no one else to leave it to. Chen's table sat in Academy storage for nearly 30 years before the country built a wall large enough to read it on. The cut mooncake is the receipt if you want the next one. The Nanyang painter whose largest canvas is still missing from public record. It's coming next on this channel. Details shift. Check the comments for the latest exhibition status before you visit. If you got something out of this, hit subscribe. This channel goes deeper on the corners of art history most videos skip.